Hello, my name is Brian Kegi, and I'm a senior developer at Western Computer. Today, we are going to review 365 Shopify Connect by Western Computer for Microsoft Dynamics Business Central. So to start off from the Role Center in BC, there's a Shopify connector option right here. We click on it. These are the different menu items for the Shopify integration. We'll go through each one first, and then we'll move on to more detailed look at each one of these and explanation of what they're used for and how it interfaces and integrates with Shopify. So starting off with the Shopify sites, this is where the sites can be set up that have the API keys and information to connect to Shopify, and you can have as many as you want. You can have multiple Shopify sites set up, and with individual settings for each one, you can set them up differently, and we'll go into that in more detail. The Shopify request queue is where the orders come in, and all communication that's going into Business Central or out of Business Central goes through what we call a Shopify request queue. So all the orders, the items, they'll go through this first, and then they'll process and either go into Business Central or go out from Business Central to Shopify. The Shopify order queue is where the orders come in to Business Central from Shopify and are processed into Business Central sales orders. And if there are issues with them, they will stay in this queue. As you see, there's some errors, item not set up, or some shipping service mapping isn't set up. And we'll go into that in more detail in a bit. The Shopify order archive, as the orders are created in Business Central, then the Shopify order will move over to the Shopify order archive. The Shopify log, this logs all the communication from Nav to Shopify or from Shopify into Nav, both directions, so you can see and review what was sent, when. Shopify methods, these are all the methods that are available in Shopify right now in the Shopify connector. And as more are added, there's an option, get new objects, you can click on update methods and it'll add the new ones to this list. And these would be the methods that are available to the Shopify sites. So you don't have to use every method with every site. We'll go through that in a bit. In the Shopify method list, this is where we can see all the methods and what sites have what method. Like I said, you don't have to have all the sites importing orders or importing items or updating the shipments. And we'll go into that in a bit. Let's start off by looking at the detail in the Shopify sites. So for each site, there's different settings that can be applied to them. For instance, customer numbers within Business Central. You can assign a number series to customers if you wanted a different number series than standard Business Central. If you leave it blank, it'll use the standard Business Central functionality from the sales and receivable setup. Sales order numbers, same thing. You can have specific sales order number series for your orders that are in Business Central. Or you leave it blank, it'll use the standard Business Central number series from the sales and receivable setup. Freight accounts and sales tax accounts. If you're using freight, if there's a freight cost on an order coming from Shopify, this will specify what freight account number to use on the sales order line. Same with sales tax. If there's sales tax coming from Shopify, routines will create a separate sales line for that sales tax amount. And the order tolerance amount can be set up if there's some rounding issues and penny off from Shopify to what Business Central calculates. Then you can set this tolerance up so the order will still process and not get stopped. Otherwise, if there is a difference, it'll stop in the queue, and then you can troubleshoot or fix what the issue is. The job queue category code is just a way in the Business Central job queue that'll run specific jobs and a way to consolidate the jobs on the job queue. And active, if you have all the settings here, but you don't, when it's running job queue to synchronize Shopify with Business Central, you can turn this off and it won't synchronize this site. And the website information, this would be the Shopify API keys that are set up on Shopify site, and the passwords and shared keys, and the URL address from Shopify. And that's all set up on the Shopify site. And this would be the methods that are available for this site that I showed, and the different URL endpoints. And this is all documented in the Shopify API documentation. For instance, when you're sending or receiving Shopify information, there's certain things you can set, like for your orders. What kind of orders do you want to import? You can filter out certain items. You can limit, their max is 250 of orders that can be imported at a time. The status, what was the status? You want to filter on just paid orders. So this can be set specifically for what the needs are. Products, again, you can import products, and this would be the endpoint for the URL. You can import different types of products. Tracking information. In Business Central, it's called a shipment. In Shopify, it's called fulfillment. So as shipments are processed in Business Central, this can be set up to create a fulfillment and update the tracking number on Shopify. That's what the fulfillment add, or you can cancel a fulfillment from Business Central, the posted sales shipment, and I'll go over that in a bit later. And you can update the tracking number if it updates in Business Central to Shopify. Configuration templates up in the action. So for each site, the Business Central templates can be set up for customers, sales order headers, and sales order lines. So you can default various fields and information to either customers, your order header, or order line level. And for instance, let me go to a configuration template here. In Business Central, we have Shopify customer. I set one up just for the Shopify customers coming in. So we can default different fields. For instance, the customer posting group is a required field for a new customer coming in from Shopify to Business Central. We're going to default this to domestic. Before the customer can be put on the order, it needs to have this field. So this is what we're going to specify as a default. You can set up various ones for different sites if you need different options depending on the requirements. Same thing with the order numbers. Locations. Every site can have a default location set up for it, but each site can also have an additional location. And what the location is used for is when we're sending the product or item inventory balance back to Shopify. This tells what site has what locations. So for instance, if we just wanted one location to send the inventory balance back to Shopify, then we can specify location here. We could also add another location. So maybe one coming out of the blue location also. So then the inventory balance would be calculated based on these two locations and sent back to Shopify. The request queue is just showing that request queue for this site. There shouldn't be anything in here, but if you have communication problems, internet goes down for whatever reason, it'll stay in here until it can process those transactions. And the log is, again, just for this site. It shows the log that we looked at earlier for just this site and shows you transactions that have occurred. And you can also view what was sent or what was received from Shopify. The actual XML, if you wanted to look at it. Let's move down next to the Shopify order queue that we saw before. From here, you can see the individual orders that came in from Shopify. And you can also do a manual import of the orders from Shopify. Once these issues are corrected, for instance, this update Shopify shipping agent service, FedEx Express. So what happens here, Shopify has many different shipping services, and those need mapped into Business Central. So from here, we can go right to the shipping services cross-reference. These on the left, Shopify shipping services are on the left. This is what came in and will be automatically inserted if they don't exist from Shopify when the orders are imported. And if a cross-reference isn't set up into Business Central, like for what shipping agent each one of these refers to, then that's why you get the error here, and it'll stay in this order queue until these are mapped. And once they're mapped, they don't have to be ever changed or looked at again unless you want to change one specifically to something else. You can come in here anytime manually and change it. So this one is FedEx Express Saver. So this one here, let's just map it to FedEx to standard, for instance. Then after this is set, this can be updated. We could click on create sales order manually, or when the next job queue runs for creating orders, it would pick them up and process them. Let's see what happens when we do this manually. Okay, so this item isn't set up. So once the item was set up in Business Central, then this would process. So once it processes like we went before, it'll archive off once it's finished. And these will stay in here, and you can see what orders came through, if there's any questions. And down below in the lines, you can view the actual XML that came from Shopify, if you ever had to review for whatever reason. Okay. And the log we already reviewed, so not much different detail here. You can remove the log entries, older than 7 days, or remove all log entries if you don't need them anymore. So looking at a posted cell shipment in Business Central, so from this cell shipment list, once, and I mentioned before, once a Business Central order was shipped, if there is a tracking number on the order, it'll send that tracking number and create a fulfillment on Shopify. So when you go to the Shopify site, you'll see there will be a fulfillment, and it will be fulfilled by Microsoft Dynamics Business Central. And from Business Central, you can create a fulfillment manually if you wanted. Like say you didn't have a tracking number originally when you shipped the order, you got one later, you would go into Post to Sell Shipment, and add the tracking number here. And once you did that, then you would need to send this shipment and create the fulfillment on Shopify. So you could just click on this button here to create the fulfillment on Shopify. And or if you had to change this tracking number, you could change it here, whatever, to new tracking number, and then you could update the fulfillment on Shopify. Or you could cancel fulfillment on Shopify by clicking cancel fulfillment, and that'll go out to Shopify and cancel that fulfillment. And you could reship it or change tracking number, or maybe you cancel the whole shipment. So whatever the issue was, you could correct it from here. And that's pretty much it in an overview of the different pieces in Shopify. Thank you for watching. Please contact us if you have any questions at info@westerncomputer.com.